Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Digital Services Forum. Today, we're going to talk about digital product factories with automation and actually what that is. Some of you have seen it over the years. I did some early versions of this a while back, but it's something we've been working on quite a bit. So I have a lot of people that have been helping me along with it, and I wanted to show it today and talk to you about some next steps. I know there's a lot of people on here for the first time. I saw some invites that were forwarded amongst you. If it is your first time today, make sure that you go ahead and use our chat. We like to go ahead and have an active chat among members. And a lot of times people tell me on these meetings that there's these sidebars that they have because they made contacts during the meetings. So definitely use the opportunity to chat it up with the different forum members, and make sure you introduce yourself if it's your first time, especially. And welcome if it is your first time. I want to jump right into the agenda because we have a lot to cover today. I want to talk about the problem statement for digital factories so that everybody understands, why are we doing it and what does it actually cover. I'm going to go through a walkthrough, more of a walkthrough. We go through a conceptual walkthrough, and then we'll go into a live demo. We'll actually build the digital product on our forum instance, so that this way, for those of you who don't know, we have an instance that we all share amongst ourselves. And on that instance is where I'm going to do this demo from. So if there's some things that you want to go back and look at, you'll have admin access to that instance to go back and look at them. So I do open that up for general use. And I did clone it last night. So if there's if there's a lot of people on there, I'm able to go back and use that clone. Okay, there's some AI opportunities in here. So the factory right now is using mostly automation through workflows, but I'm going to speak specifically on the sections about where we're going to bring in AI as part of this. And I'll give you, some takeaways there. Is basically the slides that you'll be able to speak to for that AI piece. I'm not going to demonstrate that as part of the live demo today, but possibly on a subsequent demo, we'll be able to show you those pieces. And then I'll talk about how you can get involved. So what are the different things on the forum? We always like to share something. It might just be a PowerPoint. It might be the PowerPoint and some code. It might be the demo that you're going to see on the instance. We try to share as much as we can so that we're able to take advantage of other bodies of work. So that's what I want to do today, is share the work that I've done so far on the digital factory. Okay, so I borrowed this value stream to start defining our problem. And this is a value stream from the Business Architecture Guild. And it's just a high-level way to start looking at what does it take to deploy a service. So my use case today is going to be specific to government, but I'm going to stick to the broader concepts until we get down to the use cases, and then I'll actually drop into government. But when you're starting to design a new service, right? You have to conceptualize the service. Then you're going to design and create it, right? All the way through to when you're saying the service is live in production. What are we doing to improve that service ongoing? So we started to ask questions on this, like, why does it take so long to get these things going? And in each domain, we had a different set of questions. Like, how do you do conceptualization today? Do we do 1,000 emails, which is most of the time the case? And then we do some storyboarding and demands and design, right? So we try to get a concept of how long it takes here. How do you express? And that was all over the board with those. And then we asked different questions through the different areas, right? So I'm not going to go into the details on our value stream analysis, but what we really looked at here is, where is it getting stuck? Why does it take so long? In some government agencies that we spoke to, it takes up to a year to even get something started, right? So it's a lot of back and forth, and what are we doing and how are we doing it? I was going to put a questionnaire up today and I didn't do it. But if you look at that value stream and you say, where does it take us the longest? Like, where do we get stuck? That a lot of the focus that we jump to in ServiceNow, it seems to be out here. Like, how do we release this thing? How do we create the demand for it, right? How do we create that pipeline of to be done? And what we did as we went through, we noticed a lot of people are getting stuck back here. They're getting stuck in conceptualizing the service. How long do we talk about it before I can get into design and create? So this is the big hump right here. Once they get that demand in and they actually say, we're going to put people on it and start working on the demand, right? We're spending money now because we're investing at least in the ROM sizing of the demand. That part isn't as long as this part. That part where we're thinking about it and how do we do it and what do we do and can we get money for it? So we're doing in the factory, right? So we looked at why does it take so long, and where they got stuck, like I said, was in that beginning phase here. So again, I'm in the government domain, and this is not a big survey I did. This is just me talking to a lot of other architects and developers in government over the last 5 years. It's not, so 6 to 9 months isn't like a Gartner number or anything like that. I'll just put that out there. But that's usually what I hear is we have to talk about it for a long time and we have a lot of email back and forth. So what I'm looking to do is take that chunk, and that's where the factory really focuses. So if we look at the digital product factory for government, we started with some principles. What do we want to do with it? So in the architecture piece, we looked at the value stream, and then we said, okay, let's have some principles for a little project that we're doing. So I'm thinking about people and agencies that are running programs, because this is government. But if you're in another company or you're in school, think about, like in universities, maybe think about a research department that's spinning up a new research program. Or if you're in other companies, right, think about a department that's spinning up a new program. And who we're really looking at here is the analysts and the program managers. So how do we get them to participate in their own prototype is what we're looking at the beginning. So these aren't developers. These are people that are coming in from those other areas. There's a central IT component. So there's a component to this where there's a central entity that usually it's going to be the part that owns ServiceNow, right? Where they're able to come, those people from the agencies are able to come to us and ask for a prototype. Like they're able to ask for help. I need help with a license or permit in government, or I need help with a social program, or I need help with a grant, right? So there's certain things like that that are standard across government or across healthcare or manufacturing or whatever it is, right? There's a lot of these patterns that are repeatable. So the product has to be accessible by developers and architects. So if we're going to give that prototype to analysts in the agencies and program managers, we want development to be able to come in and architects to be able to come in and see what's going on or participate in that prototype. So that's another part we considered there, is that, you know, how does this thing get carried into production, right? We don't let everybody play in their little sandbox and just push it to prod, but there might be interactions between like professional pro code developers that are in there and helping along the way. So we want to make sure that this is a packaged product so that any work that's being done, either by the analysts in the agency or the program managers or the developers or the architects, we want to make sure that that stays packaged. Besides automating the dev and making sure that all the code pieces in the factory are cohesive, we also want to make sure that the architecture part is cohesive. So as we're going, that architecture component, we don't want to say, okay, this thing's ready, or how do we architect? Or we don't want to have to architect it beforehand. We want to make sure that the architecture is moving along with the development of the code and the rest of the product. And then finally, number 6, we want to make sure, because a lot of times when we give access and we let the agency participate in that prototype, right? That department, that the people that aren't developers can do certain things. We don't want them to lose control afterwards. So like a lot of times dev will take it over and say, okay, thanks for the work you did. Now it's ours and we'll run with it. We want to make sure that that agency can go back in even after it's live in production and they can make tweaks on their own product. So if I need to change a form, if I need to change a little approval flow, if I need to change a title, I should be able to do that as that analyst or the program manager. So basically the goal of the factory is to take that first part that we had in the beginning that takes 6 to 9 months And in 15 minutes, create that prototype. Right. So I don't know if percentage wise, I didn't want to throw it up there because it sounds silly, but we're looking to take a 6 to 9 month process, right, and drop it into 15 minutes. So this way, those hundreds of emails and everything that goes around and the documents that are printed, all that effort of talking about things for 6 to 9 months is dumped into the prototype, right? That's what we're trying to get to, is we're trying to channel that work to a new place that's more productive than reams and reams of emails and documents. Okay, at the end, we want to make sure, again, just to call out this piece, at the end, we want to make sure that there is access for developers that aren't developers, right? For citizen developers, we call them. So in this case, an analyst or a program manager, or even IT within the agency might be helping to work on that prototype, right? And do some of the basic parts of it. Right. Are there any questions, Charles? I don't know if you see any questions in the chat. Is there anything so far that's just conceptual?
Getting a lot of comments about taking even up to 2 years. And then I see a good one. It's not quite a question, right? But pros and cons, right? Sometimes you need to really talk something out before you can start moving. Sometimes you need to get started to see the changes that are needed.
Love it. Yeah. So I'll definitely go back and look at those notes, because any more of the validation I can get from
John, those are my comments. And, I could be a bit sarcastic and silly at times, but yeah, I mean, it does take a long time in higher ed. That's my point. So we have to create that sense of urgency.
Yeah. I'm dying to do the research use case in higher ed, because I think there's a lot of the same things we do there for all those research projects. All right. The other part of this too, when we're in the factory, right, that one of the big things I didn't mention here is we want to be cognizant of the part that, like, ServiceNow is going to be part of these services. It's not going to be all of it. So when we're talking about the bigger services, we would definitely have pieces where ServiceNow, like Esri is one I do a lot in government. Right? We're doing a permit. Well, we need a map. We need to know where that permit is. We need a digital signature. We need a provider for, like, DocuSign, right? Or a payment gateway. There's always these things you need to bolt on. So from an architectural perspective, we want to make as many of those things part of our factory as we can, so people aren't shopping those themselves. They're not saying, oh, I have yet another identity provider, or I have yet another map that I'm going to use, right? Like introducing new things, if we can prevent that. So once we get our vendor, we want to lock them in and make them part of our factory. All right, so let's talk about the factory. Little corny animations I'm doing here. I'm still working on it. But in the beginning, we're going to do an intake. After that, that intake is going to build our product. It's going to use a template. It's going to create, this is a part the vendors told me takes a long time, but creates the users, which is basically saying, I need an end user. I need an agent that's fulfilling the requests that are coming in, but I also need that developer user. So I need all those users. And a lot of people say that's where I get hung up. I can't test the thing, or I get into citizen development and it's so hard to configure. The assignment group. So what happens when those things from our new product come in? So there's a request coming in from the outside, in this case, a citizen. So what happens to those when they're done? Well, it's assigned to a group. Okay, so what I do is I create that group as part of the factory. I'm going to create the CSDM model, the delivery model, as well as the support model. So there's difference on the CSM side. In this case, we're using CSM as a part. So there's a product model that we're creating, right? That product model has different pieces underneath it. So all that stuff that typically has to be done by architecture, we're getting the architecture started. We're building out those models so that when we are ready to go to prod, or we're ready to get help, I just pass those models over that the factory built, and then the architects can build on those. I'm going to make sure that I associate the users with the groups and with the models, right? So we're tying the models now into our workflows. So all that wiring underneath that you always have to think about, it's all done for you, right? This is introduced into the whole ecosystem. It's not just a bunch of code, right? Which you would get simply with the template, right? You can make a template and do your code piece, but this is considering that whole working ecosystem that you need around a new product. Okay, it's going to relate the models to the services in the new product. So this is now the services underneath. So in our case, we're going to do a use case where we do a social program. It's going to make sure that it renames all of the assets that are in our product. So record producers, for example, it's renaming it so that it's our name in there. And so a lot of the things that you would typically have to do, we're doing as much of that as we can. We're trying to get you, like, to go live, you need to get 100%, right? 100% of what you need for the program. What we're trying to do with automation is get you up to around 30 or 40% right now, right? And then we'll keep bumping that up to where we can have a lot of the automation create most of the product for us. And that's where AI is going to come in later. At the end of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a very descriptive email to people that aren't developers. So it's the analyst person that knows a little bit about ServiceNow. They maybe had an introduction, so they'll know what pieces are, right? We'll have to introduce them to this. And I'll talk a little bit about the governance after, so Brad doesn't slap my hand when we're done. But just about how this, like some ideas around governance for it. And then we're going to provide paths to either, one, get help on my product, or two, how do I say this is now ready? Like, I was able to do everything on the product. So now I want to give it to my development team, or I want to give it to our partners who can finish this for me, right? There's certain things I couldn't do because maybe there's a really complex integration, or maybe there's, I'm comfortable doing all my forms and taking it to a certain level, but then I'm going to need professional help, right? I'm going to need the pros to come in and carry it the last mile for me. Okay, so that's what the factory is something that does these things. Now I'm going to get into a specific example so I could take us through it. But before I do that, what we're doing right now for governance, because a lot of people might say, look, I'm not going to let some analyst come in from another department and create a product in my dev environment. So what we did in the beginning is we have this delivery team. So it's the product manager that's setting the packages. Like, what am I letting people build? And then how am I advertising those things in government grants, for example, right? How am I advertising that grant template? Or how am I advertising that social program template that I'm using? So they're the ones that, and if there's chargebacks, right, they would talk about the chargebacks and how much it would cost, right? So these are the people that are actually creating the products, and they're not ServiceNow products, right? These are products that are used by your company or your state or your university, right? So this is a product manager that's needed to put all your vendors together and create those packages that are useful. Then there's the digital liaison. So this is, in government, they call these digital liaisons, they call them solution consultants, they call them IT liaisons. But these are the people that are out reaching out to the different areas out of central IT and saying, look what we got. And then there's the architects, right? Making sure that all that design is in place and it's governed properly. And then the developers. And so these are all the people that we typically get involved to make sure the packages go through. So this digital liaison, that's the person that would initiate the flow. That's the person that would say that I have a good use case for one of the packages that the product manager created. All right, so that's the person we're going to start our demo with today, is that digital liaison. And we're going to see if we can build the prototype in 15 minutes, because that was our goal inside of our design. Any questions before we start?
There's not a question. It at least looks more like a comment on SAMP and the product table. Does someone want to come off mute and ask John?
Sure, I can expand on it.
Sure.
San Diego. So now I realize everybody doesn't use SAMP, but there's 4 million products in SAMP, and these products, they could be used outright as your digital products that you're selling or the customer is otherwise consuming, or they can underpin something else that you put together. But I don't see a lot of emphasis on that. I see this other direction of using, the capabilities of ServiceNow to create whatever you want to create and sell or have the customer otherwise consume. But it seems like to me there's this whole foundation that's built, in the platform, from the particular product to the model or discovery model to the model to the CSDM, through the app, through the device, that the discovery instance gets to, and it all interconnects. But from what I hear you say, John, there doesn't seem like that foundation, and I would have to assume, just even if you don't use SAMP, there's some kind of, with just SAM alone, the products, hardware, software in the platform itself, that is not necessarily being leveraged the way you're discussing here and the way you discussed in the past. So where's the disconnect in my mind, or is there a gap? Now that you understand where my perspective is on what the building blocks of ServiceNow are.
And so instead of having a software model or a hardware model, right, or the application model, what this is a different types of models that we use. So it's a different model category that we're building. In the case today, we're going to use a contract model, right? So it's basically a contract that we're creating. So it's another product model, but we're going to create like a DHS service. So the Department of Human Services, for those of you who don't know DHS. But we could actually create like a license and permit, and that license and permit might create its own product model. And what is the product model? Well, the product model could be the program that's going to consume it. So I'm creating a licensing and permitting program specifically for Department of Environmental Quality or building, right? Building permits, right, for people to come in. So I'm building my own product models here. And then I'm defining the services in them as opposed to like a package model, right, that a vendor provides. Their product model comes in because they defined it for us. So this is us building our own.
Okay, well, ServiceNow has custom models, right? So I assume if you're building anything in the platform that is not part of the platform, it's custom. And the product catalog and the product models you're talking about, and consistent with what you just said, right? There's hardware, there's software, there's service, there's facility, contract, consumables, bundles, applications, all those exist in ServiceNow.
Yeah.
And you can go outside of that and create custom, nothing wrong with that, I suppose. I'm just not sure, like, when you actually follow ServiceNow and the way it's been designed and constructed to leverage those existing types of models, they have parts and pieces that are expecting to be connected, right? So the actual model itself that gets added is connected to its product. The model is then connected, whether it's software model, hardware model, application model.
Why don't you hold on a minute and then I'll build the model, because that's going to be our first step. And then we can talk about it where it is and see if it makes more sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
So actually stay off mute, Lou, because I'm going to use you as a guinea pig here. So imagine yourself in a state government, right? And you work for Department of Human Services. And they do programs like supplemental nutrition assistance programs or rental assistance, or right. So that's what DHS does, is they help their citizens. Okay, so I'm thinking about a new program in DHS. I worked on one child welfare recently, right? So there's a new program, and I am coming in. So my Gmail account will be the person in the agency that's not the developer. Right. So what I'm doing now, I'm the liaison talking to you, Lou, right? Who's the person in the program or creating the program. And what is the program you're creating? What is that social program? So you're talking to me about.
Yeah, you want me to give you a name like Bugs Bunny?
Yeah. Like
satellites.
So more of a social program, because this is more of a DHS program that government would stand up. So let's do like food assistance or.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and submit this. All right, and what it's doing on the back end now, right, is it's starting to turn the wheels on our, it's starting to turn the wheels on our factory, right? So we just did that first step, right? I assisted Lou in getting those requirements in, and then behind the scenes now, it's running the workflows that are building the actual templates. So behind the scenes, we are going and I thought I had one of these spun up. We'll take a quick look at it. But behind the scenes, it's going through those different stages in different ways to add the data to the tables, including the product models, which are the delivery side, right? What are we doing on the CSM, but also the support models, which is the CSDM side. And we'll take a look at those. And so if we go inside Flow Designer here, right, this is mostly where all the automation takes place, right? And it's going to be Flow Designer, whether there are actions, whether there are things happening on the client side. In this case, it's mostly flows and actions that are working to go ahead and churn and create our digital product. So what we'll see in here, I'm going to just take you down underneath so you can see what's happening. Is typically is not what I'm going to show Lou, right? Who is my customer. I'm not going to show them these pieces. But on the operations piece, what the flow is basically doing is it's saying, I want to go ahead and build a new digital product, right? That's basically that step 2 after the intake. And that's what our catalog kicked off. And then I'm going to do different, I'm going to use a template because I already know what a DHS program is. Then once that template's done, I want to call back into that app that I built and rename everything so that it makes sense. Okay, so what this did in the beginning, the first thing I want to do is give somebody something that's useful, right? So what I do is I send an email out, and that email is going to explain to Lou, right? So I should have put Lou's, hey Lou, your new digital product called Food Assistance is now ready, so you can go use it. Well, what is it? What do you mean it's ready? Right. So I can go in here and it says, you know, the digital product you asked for is ready. You can access all of the things that are ready now. So I can go here and I can access that. But it says that to access it, you want to go ahead and behave, right, like a citizen. So I'm going to give you a citizen account that you can use in order to try it out. Right. So the first thing we want to do is, what does this food assistance thing look like? Right, so I can come in and try it out, and I'm going to open a different browser just so we can see what that would look like. So I'm going to log in as Derek, and I am going to go in to that URL that I gave in the email. And then what it's going to do, it's going to land us right in that new directory that I created for food assistance. Okay, so pretty basic so far. What it did is it created these record producers. And then you'll see that it renamed all the record producers, right? So I have some familiarity. But when I go and I want to apply for food assistance, what it's asking me for now is, one, it knows who Derek is, right? So it filled most of the form out. But here's getting back to where you were talking about, Lou. So there's a product that I created called Food Assistance. And then the service under the food assistance product that we're providing is apply for the food assistance benefit. Right? But I'm also assigning, and I left these unhidden. I wouldn't show these typically, but I just left them for the demo today. I also know that I need
that. What table did you put that in?
it's in the contract product model. So this is in the contract product model table, and it has an associated service. This is not CSDM yet, though, right? So I created a corresponding CSDM model, which I'll show you next.
Yeah, but if you put it in the contract product model, that's my point, right? That's food assistance is a contract model. It's not a product in the product table.
Well, it's still that the contract product model extends the product table, so it will be in that base table.
So I think the distinction here is this is a digital product in the IT for IT sense, that it's products and services that you're going to be offering to your internal and external customers that may or may not be built upon hardware and software products. So what I'm hearing you talk about, Lois, that the Stampede, that's a software product like Acrobat or Oracle or ServiceNow, that sort of thing. So it's a different type of product.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so this is not a food assistance form, right? It has Medicaid information on here, but the idea is the template built a lot of this out so that you can get started with something. That's the idea of the template. So I could submit that, but it's not usually when you're doing one of these social programs, right? This is where I say you got to look for patterns and you got to think beyond just the application. Because people are also going to come in when you run your program. People are also going to come in and ask questions about the food assistance program. So you want to have the ability to do that. They're going to dispute a claim like, hey, Lou, I'm not giving you food assistance, or hey, Charles, I'll put you as the citizen, right? Charles, I'm not giving you food assistance. And then you come back, why not, right? So I need to be able to dispute it. So some of the common things that are around that program, when I would create that product, food assistance, it's not just the application. There's other things that happen, including the back-end support. Right, so here is the end user. You can do more with it. I'm just going to do one today for our demo. But the idea here is that I found a repeatable pattern in social programs and government that I can carry people, 20, 30%, whatever that number is, of the way towards having something, right? So they can see it actually working. Okay, so the next part of the story is I want to become an agent, right? So now instead of having that end user, we want to say, okay, we submitted one of these food assistance forms, and I believe I submitted it. And now what we want to do is we want to go here, and we want to go in as this food assistance agent that I created inside of our user table, right? So I created that user, I gave them a password, and I want to be able to respond or start working on that application. Okay, so I'm going to open up another browser that's for that user and paste in my username that this person wasn't there before, right? Because I created that with my template. And this is one of the big things that vendors will tell me, hey, we put in a couple hours for this, right? So if I have these set up, even when the vendor comes in, so that they can start working on it, I can give them this information, like, here's all my test users. You're just chopping time off of what they, those mundane tasks that they have to go through to make all that work. I broke something here. I know what happened here is I have the space in there, so I still have a little quirks in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this user in my workspace. So typically what they would do is they would come in, and now they would go into a workspace. And what I did is I created that workspace experience. So that user that didn't work for me in the demo, they would typically come in, and now they would be able to see all those applications coming in and all those questions coming in. So what the factory did is it built some directory structures. So inside of our lists, it added specific lists for me so that I can see food assistance. And so if I see the food assistance applications, that one that I just submitted as that user, it came in and it actually assigned it to the food assistance agents assignment group. Right, so that user that I created in the email that I just messed up, right, because I'm now in as my admin user, they would get this on their front end. They would say, you have one case waiting for food assistance. They would open up that case, right? And now instead of, because they're trying it right away to see, what do I need to change on this thing? This is what the people in the food assistance, the processors for the applications would actually see, right? So they would have a playbook that walks them down how to fill out that form. And I stubbed out a playbook here so that we could see the beginning of it. So I need to say, who do I want food assistance for? Do you qualify based on our income requirements? You might have to get some financial statements, right? So depending on what the program is, these are hypothetical areas that you might have to add to the playbook as we go down. So you do certain things, and as the agent, I'm now walking this through the process to complete it, right? So I need to fill out all those things before this is done. Okay, so it helps guide you along the way through one of these so that you can understand that experience on the back end, just like you saw on the front end piece. So that's a quick look at what we're doing, the wiring there. There'll also be the queues coming in for the questions and the disputes, right? Because that is other things that are in my pattern. The next piece we want to look at here is on my email. What I also did is I said, hey, that user that came in, now I want to go in and I want to edit. Well, actually, before that, let me show you the support side. So besides creating that program, what I also did is I created a structure for support, because that product model and the services, right? Those are services for the delivery side. They're not the CSDM model, right? But this is now back in Employee Center, right? It's not the constituent anymore, but this is on the Employee Center. The person, those program managers that are running it, they want to be able to log a problem against their services they created, right? So what they could do is they can come in here into technology services. Oh, I might have to do something real quick. I think I got to log out and log back in for these directories on ESC. But what this does is it'll create a program support directory, and all your programs will be under here, right? So if I come in and I want to see my food assistance program, I created two tickets, right, that can come in. I can request an enhancement request. So what this will do is this will put an enhancement request, but what it's doing is it's putting an enhancement request against the food assistance business service. So now this is the CSDM model. So I'm saying food assistance, I want to go ahead and add or change the application so that it applies to food assistance, right? And usually they do this themselves, right? But now I could submit that enhancement into the enhancement queue against the support model, right? But what program offering do I want? Well, food assistance has 3 offerings. Its offerings are apply for the food assistance benefit, right? So this is now, these are CSDM service offerings, right? So I want to say apply for the benefit is what I want to change and submit that. Now I have a different work stream for a different set of people, right? This isn't going to my agents anymore. This is going to the IT team that now can answer that enhancement request. Okay, and it's the same thing. So I don't know if we would do this for every program, but it really makes the people in the program comfortable that they're attached to their counterparts in development for the and inside of service interruption, inside operations. So the operations is the same thing. I want to go ahead, it's for food assistance. So I want to go ahead and put an incident against ask a question, right? So now what I can do is I can go ahead and log that problem and give them the details and create the incident ticket with the right business service and service offering under it.
So what's the digital product?
So the digital product is, I'm using the product back on the CSM side. So the digital product is food assistance. And inside that digital product called food assistance, there's these 3 service offerings. Food assistance offers these 3 things for citizens.
Okay.
So I can put in the product queue, that product queue, if I did an enhancement request, it would go against the food assistance product because they're working on products in dev, right? They're not working on services. They're a product team. And then that would affect the different offerings as those builds get done.
Let me make sure I understand this. So the evolution of CSDM 4.0 to CSDM 5.0 draft safe harbor is the evolution of the design domain from design to design and planning, in which design today in 4.0 has business applications that are consuming app services, and 5.0 has digital products that are consuming service instances. And so this is more aligned with 5.0, since you're saying it's digital product than maybe 4.0.
Yeah, yeah. And those products have been there forever. We're just getting more prescriptive about it. So the product models aren't anything new. It's just using it to develop your own in this case.
Yeah.
So it's being more prescriptive about that in the common service data model. So they're bringing that, I'm making distinctions between the support world and the delivery world. But they want to make less of a distinction, right? So bringing the business and that piece together on the product models. So that's a good way to look at it.
Mhm.
All right. So the other thing that happened here, right, because I created that service, what I also would get is as I come down and I go into my digital portfolio management, I didn't attach it to an actual portfolio yet, right? But I already know that this thing is using ServiceNow to deliver it. It might be using DocuSign, right? So I know how to build the model. So because it's in my template, I could apply more of that model. But what I did today is I created a business service with some offerings on it that corresponds to my product model, that supports the model that I built. And so if I come down into my services, I should now be able to find the food assistance service. And in DPM, that solution owner for food assistance has visibility into what's going on, right? So I didn't put a lot in here yet, right? But they can see what's going on for planning, right? I have ideas, demands, new things that are coming in, my build. And then as it starts to come in, I would move this to prod 2, where they would start logging incidents and requests and changes, right? So all that wiring, think about all the work that goes in after the fact to wrap the support function around the product. That's basically what's done already, right? The template did all that wrapping for you. So basically what you could see here, right, is that I didn't build the model all the way out, right? But we have inside of food assistance, our factory basically created the model so that the support team can say that if I have a problem with food assistance on tier 1, I know to ask, do you have a problem with the application, or do you have a problem with asking a question, right? So you can start to do that troubleshooting here. And then that service owner that's in DPM, right, would be able to visualize that. So next to each of these, I would have an app service, right, called ServiceNow. I might have another app service called DocuSign or Esri, but that can all be built out as part of the factory. Once I have my standard vendors on there, I know the operations that I'm dependent on to run the Apply for Food program, right? It might be some eligibility system that I have in my government that's unique to this use case. But all that, think about all the wiring and all the people involved and all the chunks you can take from those different functions and basically use automation, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to rethink the way that we build these products and look at during the deployment, what are all those things that are patterns, repeatable patterns? So in this case, a social program, right? I met with a lot of different states and I'm like, wow, you're all doing that same groundwork, right? That same foundational work. You're all doing things over and over and over again in 6 different areas, right? From operations to architecture to development. So if you just start chipping away at those and saying, what is the low-hanging fruit for automation? That's basically what I did here, right? How much of that can we automate? So the low-hanging fruit are those repeatable patterns, like the ones that I did was licensing and permitting. I did a DHS service desk. Grants would be on the list. FOIA requests in government are really big. Freedom of Information Act. Even government services like 311 service. So I had a pothole, right? So those are things that all have that same foundation that we're able to replicate. All right, so there is that, we do want to do governance here. We don't want to let everybody from every department come in and start creating products in our dev environment, right? We want to make sure that we're going through that liaison that can coach the people. Hey, Lou, there's going to be this email coming and it's going to tell you how to log in and how to see basically the bones, right, of your new product. That's your prototype. And then it's going to give you instructions on how to edit that prototype. Okay. And that's one last piece I didn't show you. So what it did also is, I need to backtrack here. because I got off track a little bit, but it's gonna give Lou access to the studio, right? So basically Lou would be able to come in to App Engine Studio, which is our low code studio. And he's going to be able to come in and work only on his application, right? So when Lou comes in, because he's not a developer, so I don't want to let him have access to my ServiceNow dev environment. So when Lou comes in, he's only going to see his food assistance app, and he won't see any of these buttons up here where I can create a new application, but Lou would be able to edit his form, right? So here is the collaborators on the account, and I put that collaborator on the account as part of my workflow. So basically, I gave Lou access to his food assistance application that I built, and all of those artifacts that I built as part of that application, including 19 experiences, right? The playbook is one of those experiences that I showed you, but also all the record producers. It's all contained in this food assistance app. So now if a developer needs to access it or an architect needs to come in and see the models, they can get all that through the application. So it's self-contained. And then after dev pushes it live and makes changes because Lou couldn't do everything, it's still contained in a scoped application. So food assistance is all wrapped up nicely with a bow. You're not chasing update sets all over the platform. Everything is inside here. Okay, and that's the idea behind it. Okay, so that's the end of the demo. I forgot that one piece.
I really like the automation, how that all can bundle up into a few clicks, because there's definitely a lot of moving parts that you have to piece together one by one, and they get cobbled or referenced together as you go.
Yeah.
I have to drop, but yeah, thanks for using me as your guinea pig on that one. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being the guinea pig. Talk to you soon, Lou.
Okay.
All right, so now as we look to expand this, right, this is where it gets really interesting, because those program managers, right, those Lou's that are in the programs could now start doing a little bit more, right? So we can say, yeah, you're going and changing your form and you're changing the name of your application and maybe your description, you're doing some little things, but we can slowly bring them along to where they're doing more and more on their own, especially with AI. Right, so now if we look at that workflow that happens when that application that we submitted comes in, right, this is where AI is going to assist and help people with flow generation. Right, so we can type in what we want to do with a workflow. Right, once that application comes in, I want to send it to this team for screening, and then they would push it to my agents. Right, so I could type that in, and it's going to create the flow for me. Right, so the idea here is that you give those people access to some of those features, so that we're nudging them along, right, to do more and more to support their program, instead of writing in emails like, hey, could you go in and add this workflow step for me? No, you go in and you add it, right? Type in what you want and see how close you get. Right, so that's the idea, is kind of nudging them along through that. There's recommendations, right? We won't get into the actual codes, but you can, during the flow, it could actually help you out as well with what to do, so that you're not digging through all those actions underneath it. So AI is helping you, like, oh, they just got done with an approval. Maybe they need to go ahead and create a task to tell somebody to do the next thing. Okay, so this is where AI gets really interesting. We're not going to use code gen, right? Because these people aren't writing code. But maybe when we pass that over to the developers, right? They're like, well, I need this integration. I can't figure it out. FedHub is a big one in government. I need integration with FedHub. Well, let me type that in here and see if they can build me. How do I build an integration, right? So we can start doing that on the pro code side, right? I'm not suggesting we give this to those analysts in the agency, right? But we can have it on that pro code side. Those playbooks that I showed you that tell the agent how to walk through and process the application, those are things that we can now write and create the playbooks. So those steps that I showed you, where it was intake, make sure this is done and that's done, right? Now we can take people that are first day and make them effective their first day. Because it's like, well, what's my job? Well, read the instructions, right? The playbook's going to tell you your job. So now we can give people that are not developers, right, access to these AI functions. So in natural language, they can describe what they want to do once the agent gets that application. Okay, we go down the app generation. Again, probably not going to be using that one, but the service catalog items, this would probably be the #1 item, right? I have an application, but I need to do something else because before they can do that application, they need to apply for Medicaid, right? So now what I can do is I can create this new catalog item that has a similar form. I just start typing in things that I need, and it'll create that form in my scope, right? Inside of my food assistance application, it's going to build that catalog item for me. Okay, so there's all these use cases, that ways we can think about getting that work, getting all those emails that people are talking about what they want to do, to redirect that, right, into things like this, into things like, instead of typing your email, go type it in the flow generation first, right? Don't call me until you type it in there. So we're not at that point yet, right? But that's where we're thinking this can go. If we go as far as we can with automation and workflows, and then we go and we turn AI on it, right, to generate content for us. That is, I think, the big win in my eyes, to really take that from 30%, more up to the 60, 70%, where we're able to get these agencies and these people that are writing all the emails to the point where they can create close to their own service. When we bring our vendors in, right, the vendors, we explain to the vendor, this is our template, this is our factory, right? So you're going to be working with these basics, these studs that we put up, right? We did the bones for you. We just need you to kind of finish putting the finishing touches on it, right? That's kind of how you would instruct. You would explain your factory to your vendors so that they can respond in kind, right? They know to start with this base model, and they know that we have these product models, we have these support models, and that's what I'm working with. And so on the Now Assist part, right, there's this is what we want to do. So developer productivity is the big thing, but I'm thinking about those developers that aren't developers, those people that know how to write English, right, but they don't know how to code. So all of them don't make sense, but certainly a subset of those, at least half of those Now Assist for creator use cases, make a lot of sense for those non-developers. Okay, according to Gartner, if you stand up as successful, they call it citizen development, low code, no code, that can increase your dev capacity by as much as 65%, right? So we're not saying on day one, you're going to get them doing 65% of your development and increase your capacity that much so that you could churn through a lot of your backlog, right? But what Gartner thinks is that if we can successfully get the right governance and we can enable these people to take their emails and put them into the prototype, that I can increase that by 65%. So that's the big thing that we're really aiming for. All right, so to wrap it up, I'll open it up for some questions at the end if you have any, but there's a couple things I want to give you today in case any of this made a lot of sense or in case you want to use it. So right now for government, we're starting to do workshops. So we're working with, what you saw today was parts of App Engine. It was parts of public sector digital services. So we're putting together workshops to where we can build these. So in the workshops, in the first 4 hours isn't about wiring and different things. It's about getting to a permit in 15 minutes and working on that permit, or working on that social program, right? So that you skip a lot of the wiring and you get the people in the agencies in that only care about the program. They don't care about CSDM or product models, that they don't care about stuff that Lou was talking about, right? They just want to see, how do I process this application faster? So that's what we'll do in that workshop, is we focus on those people, right? More the business analyst people that are writing the emails, asking us for stuff. That's who we want to target. There's AI workshops available. We advertise this at Knowledge. So we come in and do an AI assessment and kind of give you a hypothetical idea of what AI would look like in your environment. And we can also work with your AI compliance people to make sure that we're actually getting them in front of the effort, because a lot of times just coming in, introducing AI without going through that step So this assessment will help with that. So that could be a precursor to doing some of this if AI is the way you're going. The demo I just did is available in our environment. So I won't say most, but a lot of you already have an admin account on that instance I just did the demo in. If not, you can request one. So you can get a link by emailing me or going on our forum page, and you can get a link to basically request an admin account. So it takes about a day to turn that around. So if you did want to repeat what I did and try it out and talk to somebody about it, you can do that. And that would be kind of a precursor. Maybe we build our own factory, or, I know the university people are probably saying, like me, research, right, is the #1 use case here. So how do I do DHS, but do it for research instead? All the code I showed you is in a Git repo. So there's a link here to the Git repo that has the digital product factory in there, because the thing that actually is the cogs, those wheels, that is an app in itself. So I call it the 15-minute prototype application. So that code, if you want to pull it onto your instance, is in that repo. I will give you a little bit of a warning. It's not stable code. What I had to do a lot of this because our ServiceNow is not set up to do product deployment, which is basically what I'm doing here. So that it hasn't been done before. So I had to, like a lot of tables you can't typically write data into, I had to open those tables up. There's a couple tables like sys tables that are not accessible. So I had to go make them accessible for my workflow. So be forewarned, right? If you do try to install this in your environment, I need to clean that up. We need a tool set, we need a factory tool set in the long run. And I built a lot of the tooling out in Actions where I can. So I'm using an API, but there's still a lot of stuff that I'd call it hacky, right? Like to do the demo, I had to do certain things that, probably a developer is going to roll their eyes at. So you could pull the code down, see some of the tooling, but yeah, I definitely need some help, and I need to go back and redo some of that tooling that built certain parts of that structure. Charles, are there any more questions online there? I know.
Not seeing any.
Excellent. Well, hopefully this was useful to everybody. Hopefully, I know there's a lot to digest here, right? It's a different area that we worked in before. So a lot of using modeling that we had done and applying a lot of that. So happy to answer questions on it, have next steps. I'll make sure all the information on this thing is posted inside of the channel with the recording. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Appreciate it.